He has a lot of business interests. He has Tesla, makes a lot of cars there. Of course, they have lower labor rates in terms of the cost structure for his cars. So even though, you can charge a pretty good premium. And so Elon Musk did go to the Pentagon today, but what they're saying is, oh, he was there to try to make it more efficient.
Donald Trump has been pushing back at claims that Elon Musk was briefed on U.S. military plans for a potential war with China while on a visit to the Pentagon. The president said he wouldn't be showing such a brief to anybody. This comes as a judge reprimanded the Trump administration over its use of centuries-old laws to deport suspected Venezuelan gang members. Let's dig into these stories with Daniel Lippman, Washington and White House reporter for Politico, who's on the line. Daniel, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Hi. Now, shall we start off with the story that's kind of broken out in the last few hours, the ongoing battle between the Washington-based U.S. District Judge James Boasberg and the Trump lawyers over his ruling trying to stop the Trump administration from deporting a couple of hundred Venezuelans deemed the worst of the worst by Trump. But, the Trump administration says, we've got the right to do this, and they did.
They did. And he's very skeptical of Trump's use of this wartime law, where basically they did not get any due process. These mostly Venezuelan migrants who were sent to a notorious El Salvador anti-terrorism prison. And so he is really James Boasberg, who's gotten a lot of criticism from Trump. I think that in my years of covering Trump, no other judge has come under as much scrutiny and criticism than this guy. And he has basically indicated he doesn't think that his rulings were followed because he told the Trump administration lawyers last Saturday to turn their planes around before they reached El Salvador, and they ignored it. And he told them in a verbal order, and then they said, oh, we complied with his written orders, when in fact, those verbal and written orders carry the same exact effect. You can't just ignore one just because it's not written down.
Yeah, and in this evening's hearing, Boasberg apparently told the Deputy Assistant Attorney General Drew Ensign that he couldn't recall ever having heard government lawyers address him in the way the administration had in this case. Apparently, total disrespect and total disregard. Now, how important is this case?
I think this case is very important because Trump is trying to expand his powers, especially with immigration. This was an issue that helped him get elected. People thought that Biden had kept an open border and we had millions of illegal immigrants who were all claiming asylum when you can't. Most of those people were actually here for economic reasons, which is not something you can claim asylum for. And so I think this is probably going to go all the way to the Supreme Court, but there's a lot of steps beforehand. And so I think that I'm sure Boasberg has gotten lots of security. Even his kids have taken off their social media because of threats to him and his family. And so you've had even Chief Justice John Roberts, who's a Republican, who was appointed by President George W. Bush, say, hey, let's not call for impeaching judges just because you disagree with one of their policies and their decisions. There's an appellate review process where you can just go to the next appeals court to decide if you're unhappy with district court judge's ruling.
Yeah, and Daniel, what's happened to guardrails, to the separation of powers? I mean, famously, you've got the co-equal branches of government, the government, of course, the legislature, the executive, the judiciary, of course, as well, an important guardrail. How much strain is it under?
It's under a pretty good amount of strain, but Trump has not. He has said repeatedly that he will abide by court rulings, and he hasn't directly contradicted many of these. But he wants a political fight on immigrants because he doesn't want. He wants Democrats to be in favor of keeping Venezuelan gang members in this country, or tell them, hey, let's do a due process, because due process for gang members is not very popular in America, where we've seen a string of crimes committed by migrants. And so I think that he doesn't want to go down in history as the president who totally ignored the Supreme Court and get hauled off by Supreme Court security officers. Not that they would actually have that power,
Yeah.
but he doesn't want to break the system. But he is kind of having this unitary executive theory of his powers, where basically, as head of the executive branch, he views his powers as pretty unlimited until maybe Congress becomes Democratic in a year and a half, if the midterm elections, after Democrats are very angry about all of the power grabs he's had.
Sure. And talking of power grabs by Trump and his proxies, what about the head of Doge, the tech billionaire Elon Musk, visiting the Pentagon for briefings, and people saying, hang on a minute, how can this guy who's deeply invested in China be given secret information, secret intelligence on American plans in the event of a war with China? Now, I see there's a pushback from the president about this. So can you clarify what's gone on here?
So the president, the defense secretary, Elon Musk, they've all denied that he was ever going to get this type of briefing. And so they've called it this report initially by the New York Times as fake news. And they have been very vociferous. And so that's an indication that they were concerned about the political ramifications of this because of how Elon Musk has said he's pretty pro-China in some ways. He has a lot of business interests. He has Tesla, makes a lot of cars there. Of course, they have lower labor rates in terms of the cost structure for his cars. So even though he can charge a pretty good premium, and so Elon Musk did go to the Pentagon today, but what they're saying is, oh, he was there to try to make it more efficient, just like with his Department of Government Efficiency. And so maybe they had this briefing scheduled and then they canceled it after the political blowback. But the New York Times doesn't make up stories. And so they clearly got this from good sources in the Pentagon, senior officials who were wary of this and didn't think that this was a good idea, especially with how Elon Musk does have a lot of conflicts of interest.
Well, let's see whether or not the leak inquiry initiated by Musk turns up anybody. It turns up the leaker. Just thinking finally about Musk, when it comes to, Tesla, when it comes to the drop in share price, is it getting to him? I saw an extraordinary interview that he gave to Sean Hannity on Fox News. He looks rattled.
He does. He doesn't want his companies to turn into belly flops. So he's almost, it's really interesting. He's switched customer bases. And so it used to be that people who bought Tesla cars were liberals. They did not want to contribute more to climate change. They thought this was very important to help combat global warming. And now most liberals won't even buy any Tesla cars anymore because they are horrified at what he's done to the government. They can buy other electric vehicles. There are other options in the marketplace. And so if they bought a Tesla, they would almost view it as betraying the democratic orthodoxy. And so now conservatives are buying Teslas to show allegiance to Musk. And so maybe that's a good thing for the climate if it gets conservatives to be very eager about buying electric vehicles.
Oh, the irony. Daniel Lippman, Washington and White House reporter for Politico, thank you very much indeed for joining us.